Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever brought something into your home and later sensed that something just felt off? Could it be that objects, even ordinary ones, carry more than just physical weight? What if the unease you're feeling isn't just emotional, but spiritual? Today, I want to talk to you about something most people overlook, something that might be quietly affecting your home, your family, and your peace without you even realizing it. We often assume the world around us is purely physical, but in reality, it's deeply spiritual. Every object, every space carries energy. And whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, certain things can open doors we never intended to unlock. Now, some people might scoff at that. They'll say, it's just a statue, or it's only a painting, or it's just a book. But the truth is, what you allow into your home, you're also allowing into your spirit. Objects are never just objects. They carry stories. They hold energy. They reflect the intent and influence behind their creation. And sometimes, without warning, they can act as spiritual doorways. Think about it. If someone gave you a gift and later you found out it was stolen, you'd likely feel uncomfortable keeping it. It wouldn't just be about the item itself. It would be about what it represents. The same principle applies in the spiritual realm. If something was made with dark intent, used in rituals, or designed to glorify what is unholy, then it's carrying more than just form. It's carrying presence. People often ask, how can an object hold spiritual power? It's not even alive. No, it's not. But spirits don't need something to be alive in order to attach to it. All across cultures, you'll find traditions of dedicating objects to spiritual forces, anointing items, using them in rituals, infusing them with intention. Whether you believe in these practices or not, the spiritual realm is real. And it functions according to laws that don't need your awareness or your approval to operate. Some of you may have experienced this firsthand. Have you ever walked into a space, a house, a hotel room, a secondhand shop, or even a friend's home, and immediately felt unsettled? Nothing looked out of place. The lights were on. Everything seemed fine to the eye, but something in the atmosphere felt heavy, thick, uncomfortable. That wasn't your imagination. That was your spirit sensing something your eyes couldn't detect. Because just as a person can carry an energy, so can a place, and so can the objects within it. You might be asking yourself, what kinds of things should I be watching out for? It begins with anything that has a direct tie to the occult, demonic activity, or dark spiritual practices. Objects used in witchcraft, seances, or ritualistic ceremonies are not spiritually neutral. They can absolutely carry a spiritual residue. But it's not just the obvious items we should be cautious about. Often, it's the subtle ones we overlook. A book gifted to you that promotes sorcery or mysticism. A statue you picked up during travel that unknowingly honors a false god. A piece of artwork or jewelry bearing symbols you didn't recognize, but that carry deep spiritual meanings rooted in darkness. And the danger isn't just what these items are, it's what they invite. Once something becomes a spiritual gateway, it doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It begins to shift the atmosphere. You may begin to notice unusual tension in your household, an unexplained heaviness, increased arguments, sleepless nights, or vivid, disturbing dreams. You may have brushed it off as stress, fatigue, or coincidence. But when something dark has been given a place in your home, even unintentionally, it will eventually reveal itself. It will press in, it will influence, and it will attempt to dominate the spiritual climate of your space. Here's the good news: you don't have to live with it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to tolerate anything that wasn't sent by God. You have authority over your space. You have the right and the responsibility to decide what enters your home and what must go. You have the authority to close those doors. And when you do, when you physically remove those objects and take a bold stand to say, no more, you'll notice a difference. The spiritual atmosphere will shift because darkness cannot remain where it's no longer welcome. Some of you, even right now, are thinking about something in your home that has always made you feel uneasy. Maybe it's something you've ignored. Maybe you've chalked it up to overthinking, to simple paranoia. But I want to challenge you. Trust your discernment. That internal warning, that discomfort isn't random. It's a sign. If something stirs your spirit in the wrong way, there's a reason. And when you choose to remove those objects, when you take the step to cleanse your space and dedicate your home to light rather than darkness, you'll begin to feel peace return. It's not just emotional, it's spiritual. The weight begins to lift and clarity takes the place of confusion. There are things in this world that carry more than just physical form. Some things come with a presence, an attachment you can't always see, but you can certainly feel. And here's the truth. Not everything in your home belongs there. Not everything sitting on your shelf is just decoration. Some items carry a spiritual influence, and not all of them come from a good source. I need you to hear this clearly. They're objects that draw in darkness. They're items that act as open doors, silent invitations for unseen forces that have no intention of bringing you peace. And here's the thing. You don't have to be involved in the occult to be affected. You don't have to dabble in witchcraft or go looking for trouble. In fact, you don't even have to believe in it for it to touch your home. If an object has been connected to dark spiritual forces, it doesn't need your permission to carry that influence with it. It just needs access. And sometimes, access looks like a gift, a souvenir, or something you brought in without second thought. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't own anything like that. But let me gently ask you, do you know the full history of everything in your home? Where did that decorative mask come from? Do you know what that symbol etched into that souvenir actually represents? Do you really know what that necklace means? Do you know what hands have touched that antique before it ended up in your life? Because the truth is, objects can carry spirits. They can absorb and retain the spiritual residue of where they've been, what they were used for, and who interacted with them. Now, I'm not saying every vintage item or secondhand piece is cursed, but I'm saying that some objects were intentionally dedicated to darkness. They weren't just made, they were spiritually charged. And when you bring something like that into your home, you're not just introducing wood, metal, or fabric. You're welcoming the spiritual weight it carries. There are items out there that were used in rituals, crafted specifically for occult purposes. Some have been cursed by individuals who know exactly what they're doing and why. This isn't fiction. This isn't superstition. The spiritual realm is real, and it's not something to be taken lightly. When an object has been tied to dark forces, it becomes more than decoration. It becomes a doorway, a silent invitation for unclean spirits to enter, to influence, to disrupt. And once that influence takes root, its impact can be felt deeply. Those who have encountered these objects and dealt with their consequences will tell you firsthand. They'll speak of strange disturbances in their homes. Things they couldn't explain, cold spots in rooms, oppressive atmospheres, persistent nightmares, or sudden tension that seemed to come from nowhere. So ask yourself, could it be that something in your home is carrying more than just sentimental or aesthetic value? They spoke of tension that lingered in the air, an oppressive heaviness they couldn't explain, nightmares that began the moment a certain object entered their space. And again, the moment that item was removed, the darkness that came with it also disappeared. I've heard people say, but I only bought it for decoration. I didn't know, and I believe them. But let me be clear, ignorance does not cancel reality. If something was created with dark intentions, those intentions don't dissolve simply because you were unaware. If an item was prayed over, cursed, or spiritually charged by someone who serves darkness, that energy doesn't vanish just because you didn't recognize it. The moment you feel uneasy about something, the moment your spirit hesitates, you need to pay attention. That check in your spirit is not paranoia. It's discernment. I've met people who held on to items because they thought they were harmless. Only later did they realize that the very object they had dismissed was the source of turmoil in their home. A strange doll that never seemed to stay in one place. A souvenir from a distant country that carried more than just cultural value. A book that appeared intriguing on the surface, but was rooted in something far deeper and darker than just printed words. And once they finally made the decision to let it go, to physically remove that object from their home, the atmosphere shifted, the weight lifted, peace returned. That sense of oppression that clung to their space, it broke the moment the gateway was closed. Some of you, right now, are already thinking of something in your own home, an item you've had a nagging feeling about. Maybe you've dismissed it, called it coincidence, or brushed it off as your imagination. But let me say this, that internal warning exists for a reason. If something is making your spirit feel uneasy, that's not random. If you've been feeling unexplained heaviness, confusion, spiritual tension, or even darkness pressing in, it's time to stop and ask yourself an important question. What have I allowed into my home? Sometimes, without even realizing it, we've welcomed something in. The enemy doesn't always come through the front door with a warning. Sometimes he slips in quietly through the objects we allow into our homes. He hides in what seems ordinary, in what appears harmless. But behind that disguise, there's a spiritual influence waiting for an open door. And the only way to reclaim your space is to close every one of those doors. You must remove anything that serves as a spiritual foothold, any object that was never meant to be part of your environment in the first place. There's so many things we bring into our homes without giving them a second thought. Gifts from friends, souvenirs from vacations, family heirlooms passed down through generations. On the surface, they seem innocent, charming, even. But not everything that enters your home comes in empty. Some things carry more than physical weight. Some items bring with them a spiritual presence you never invited and an influence you were never intended to live under. People don't always realize it, but objects have history. They've been places. They've been handled by people you don't know and used in ways you could never guess. You might think you found a beautiful old mirror at a thrift store, but do you know where it's been? Do you know what was spoken in front of it? Do you know who owned it before you? Or maybe it's an antique piece of jewelry, something passed down through your family. It feels special, sentimental. But do you know the life that person lived? Do you know what it might have been used for? What kind of spiritual atmosphere it carried from generation to generation? We like to separate the spiritual from the physical, as if they exist on two different planes. But they're more connected than most people realize. Spirits can attach themselves to places. They can attach themselves to people. And yes, they can even attach themselves to things. There are those who practice the dark arts, and they understand these spiritual dynamics very well. They intentionally dedicate objects to their rituals. They use items as conduits, vessels through which spiritual power can move. Some even go as far as placing curses on objects, knowing full well that whoever ends up possessing that item will also inherit the spiritual influence attached to it. Now, you might be thinking, but I don't mess with any of that. And I get it. You may never have dabbled in anything occult, and your intentions may be pure. But here's the truth. Your belief or lack thereof doesn't change spiritual reality. If something has been marked in the spiritual realm, it doesn't require your participation for it to affect your life. Just because you didn't invite it knowingly doesn't mean it can't enter. If an object was used in darkness, it carries that darkness with it. And when you bring that object into your home, into the space where you and your family live, eat, sleep, and rest, you're also inviting in the presence that comes with it. You're not just introducing a thing. You're welcoming an influence. I've had people come to me and say, I don't know what's going on. Ever since I brought this particular item into the house, things have felt off. Tension increases. Arguments erupt over small things. Disturbing dreams begin. Strange noises, shadows, or unexplained movements start to happen. The atmosphere shifts, and they can feel it. And time after time, when they finally decide to remove the object, the disturbances stop. The nightmares vanish. The tension fades. It's as if a weight has lifted, like something oppressive was finally pushed out. That's not just coincidence. That's cause and effect. Some of you right now may have things in your home that you picked up secondhand. Maybe it was a great bargain at a flea market. Maybe it looked unique or it came with an interesting story. But let me ask you, do you know where it really came from? Do you know what it may have been connected to? What might have been used for? Because if it was part of something unholy, if it was involved in any type of spiritual ritual or tied to anything demonic, you do not want it in your house. You don't want it near your children. You don't want it near your rest, your peace, your prayers. You don't want it anywhere near your life. This isn't just about so-called haunted objects. It's about anything that carries a spirit of oppression. There are statues and carved images that were intentionally created to honor false gods. There are books and cultural artifacts that were once used in spiritual ceremonies. And then there are everyday items, paintings, jewelry, figurines, that seem completely normal to the eye, but quietly carry a presence with them. The truth is, you won't always recognize these things just by looking, but you will recognize them by how they make you feel, by what shifts in your home once they arrive, by what starts happening that never happened before. Is the atmosphere different? Has your peace been disrupted? Have you noticed a lingering heaviness or tension you can't explain? You don't have to live under that influence. You are not powerless in your own home. You don't have to let any object, no matter how beautiful or sentimental, dictate the atmosphere of your house. You have spiritual authority over what stays and what must go. So when you notice that something feels off, when your spirit picks up on heaviness or unease, don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. Trust that check in your spirit. Remove the object. Take action. Break its hold by breaking its connection to your home. Because the enemy doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes he slips in quietly through the very things we carry into our space, through the items we hang on to, through the decorations we thought were just harmless. But if something is disturbing your peace, if it's shifting the spiritual atmosphere of your home, you don't need it. You don't owe it a place in your life, your space, or your spirit. Let go, because when you cleanse your home, when you boldly remove what doesn't belong and reclaim the authority God has given you, you will feel the shift. The weight will lift, the oppression will break, and peace will return. You'll walk into freedom that was meant for you all along. There are things sitting in our homes right now, things we barely give a second thought to, decorations on our walls, artwork resting on our shelves, symbols printed on our clothing, or small trinkets we've collected over the years. They seem harmless, innocent, just part of the background. But not everything that looks harmless truly is. And not every design is just a design. Some of those objects carry deeper meanings. Some carry darker spiritual presence. And some are never meant to dwell inside a home that belongs to the light. It might seem like just a pattern, just a shape, just a cultural souvenir, but in the spiritual realm, symbols hold weight. Imagery has power. And that's why symbols have been used for centuries in every culture, religion, and form of spiritual expression. What you place in your home, what surrounds your daily life, speaks something spiritually into your atmosphere. Now, you might be thinking, well, I didn't put it there for that reason, so it doesn't mean anything. But here's the reality. Meaning isn't erased by ignorance. If a symbol was created to represent something demonic, it doesn't suddenly become neutral just because you're unaware of its origin. If a piece of art was birthed from dark inspiration, or if an object was specifically crafted to honor something unholy, it carries that intention with it, regardless of your personal beliefs. Just because you don't acknowledge something doesn't mean it has no effect. Think about it. You wouldn't bring a glass of poison into your kitchen and say, well, I don't believe it's poison, so it won't harm me. That poison doesn't need your belief to function. It just needs access. And in the same way, a symbol dedicated to darkness doesn't need your permission to carry the spiritual influence it was designed to release. It simply needs a place to dwell. Some of you may have things in your home right now that, if you took a closer look, you'd realize aren't as innocent as they appear. Maybe it's a piece of art that's always made you feel slightly uncomfortable, that you never quite understood why. Maybe it's a statue or a carved figure, something you picked up on a trip or inherited, that was originally designed to honor a false god, a foreign spirit, or an energy you don't even recognize. Or maybe it's clothing printed with symbols you've never really understood, but wore anyway because it looked stylish or trendy. Let me tell you, these things carry meaning. Whether you intentionally invited something in or not, they can still bring a presence into your space. And that presence can influence your home more than you realize. I've known people who lived for years with certain objects in their homes, completely unaware of the spiritual effect they were having. They just knew something felt off. There was a strange energy in certain rooms, a heaviness they couldn't explain, nightmares that wouldn't go away, tension in the household that seemed to come out of nowhere. But then something changed. They removed the object. Maybe it was a piece of artwork. Maybe it was a statue or a symbol hidden in plain sight. And almost immediately, the atmosphere shifted. The unease disappeared. Peace returned. The heaviness lifted. That wasn't coincidence. That was spiritual law in action. The enemy is subtle. He knows most people would never intentionally bring something openly evil into their home. So he cloaks it. He hides it in the background of a beautiful painting, in the delicate details of jewelry, or in the popular symbols of entertainment and culture. He embeds it where people least expect to find it. And the more you surround yourself with these things, the more you grow numb to them. You stop noticing. You stop questioning. It becomes just another part of the background. But even if you don't see it anymore, its influence is still there. Now, let me be clear. This isn't about paranoia. This isn't about living in fear of everything around you. It's about awareness. It's about discernment. It's about understanding that certain things simply don't belong in the home of someone who wants to live in peace. If something carries a meaning rooted in darkness, why would you want it hanging on your wall? Why would you let it sit on your shelf or wear it on your clothing? What are you truly inviting into your life? You have to be intentional about what you allow into your space, because your home isn't just a structure made of walls. It's a spiritual atmosphere. And if you fill that atmosphere with things created to glorify darkness, should it really surprise you when that darkness begins to manifest through tension, unease, or spiritual unrest? But here's the good news. You don't have to live with it. You don't have to tolerate it. You have the authority to take control of your space and restore peace to your home. Right now, some of you are already thinking about something in your house that hasn't felt quite right. Maybe you've sensed it for a while, but kept brushing it off. Or maybe for the first time, you're realizing this thing isn't just decor, it's an open door. Whatever it is, I want to encourage you. Remove it. Get rid of it. Break that connection. And when you do, you'll feel the shift. The atmosphere will lighten. Peace will return. That quiet uneasiness will be gone. And you'll know deep in your spirit that you did the right thing. There's something else many people overlook. What we consume daily. The music we listen to. The shows and movies we watch. The books we read. The games we play. People often say, it's just entertainment. It's just a song. It's just a story. But here's the truth. Nothing is ever just anything. Everything you let into your life, whether through your ears, your eyes, or your home, carries something with it. It has an influence. And what you feed your mind, what you surround yourself with, is shaping your spirit, whether you realize it or not. Think about this. Why can a song shift your mood in seconds? Why can music take you from sadness to energy or from peace to frustration almost instantly? It's because sound carries more than melody. It carries emotion. It carries spirit. And so does every form of entertainment. A movie doesn't just pass the time. It can stir fear, rush adrenaline, plant images in your mind that linger long after the credits roll. That's not by accident. Entertainment isn't neutral. It was designed with a purpose. And that purpose determines the spirit it brings. Now, I'm not saying every song, film, or book is evil. But let's be honest, some of it absolutely is. Some content was created to glorify darkness, to normalize the demonic, to dress evil in laughter, to make witchcraft look like a harmless game. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more your sensitivity fades. Slowly, the things that once disturbed you begin to feel like no big deal. Things that should sound spiritual alarms just feel like harmless fun, like fantasy. But isn't that how the enemy works? He doesn't come loudly, with warnings. He slips in through subtlety, wrapped in entertainment, cloaked in distraction. People don't realize the weight these things carry. They watch horror movies filled with demonic themes and tell themselves, it's just fiction. But then they wonder, why are the nightmares starting? Why do they suddenly feel anxious in their own home? Why do they hear unexplainable noises at night? They listen to music full of rage, violence. They immerse themselves in music filled with rebellion and rage, and then wonder why they're always irritable, constantly tense, and battling intrusive thoughts they can't seem to shake. They play video games that glorify witchcraft, casting spells and curses like it's some kind of amusement, and then question why the atmosphere at home feels heavier, why their children begin having night terrors, or why there's a sudden surge of tension and division within the family. I've heard it so many times, but I don't take it seriously, they say. I don't even believe in that stuff. But let me tell you something plain and simple. Truth is not changed by belief. If you walk straight into a blazing fire, your disbelief in the flames won't stop you from being burned. And it works the same way in the spiritual realm. If you open the door to darkness, even unknowingly, it doesn't need your permission to step in. It will affect you. Some of you already know this deep down. You've experienced the shift. You've turned off a certain song and suddenly felt a weight lift. You've stopped watching certain shows or movies and noticed your home becoming more peaceful. You've removed books or games that celebrated the occult, and only then did you finally start sleeping through the night again. That's not a coincidence. That's spiritual law in action. Cause and effect. What you allow into your mind, what you fill your environment with, will either welcome light or attract darkness. You can't continuously consume content that glorifies evil and still expect your life to be full of peace and clarity. It doesn't work that way. So you have to be intentional. You have to be discerning. Ask yourself, what am I feeding my spirit? Is this entertainment enriching my soul? Or is it quietly poisoning it? Is it drawing me closer to truth or opening doors that were never meant to be unlocked? Because if something is rooted in darkness, if it glorifies what is unholy or promotes things that directly oppose the peace you so deeply desire, why would you give it a place in your life? Why allow it to remain in your home? Right now, some of you are already thinking of specific things you know don't belong. Maybe you've had that gut feeling for a while, but you pushed it aside. Maybe you've even seen the consequences, but kept telling yourself it was just coincidence. Let me tell you, it's not nothing. That unease is real, and you don't have to continue living under its influence. You have the power to change the atmosphere of your home. You can take back authority. The moment you remove what was never meant to be there, peace begins to flow again. Darkness doesn't linger where it's no longer welcome. And that shift you feel, that's not your imagination. That's the power of alignment, of choosing light over compromise. Some people believe that as long as they're not dabbling in the occult, not using Ouija boards or casting spells, they're in the clear. But the enemy doesn't always show up in obvious forms. He doesn't always knock loudly at the front door. Sometimes, all he needs is just a crack. A small space, a little compromise, a piece of your home you left unguarded. And often, that foothold comes through tolerance. Not through ritual, but through inaction. Through keeping things that were never meant to stay. Through holding onto items that carry weight, whether emotional or spiritual. And here's the hard part. Sometimes it's not even the obviously dark things. Sometimes it's the sentimental ones. The items tied to your past, even if that past brought pain or bondage. The gifts you receive from people who left behind brokenness, confusion, or hurt. Person or a memory that was never meant to remain in your life. It might be time to ask yourself why you're still keeping it around. Often, we cling to things not because they bring peace, but because we're afraid to let go. But not everything in your home is just an object. Some things carry weight. Some things are more than physical. They're emotional anchors or spiritual links that keep you tethered to what you were never meant to return to. I've spoken with people who couldn't understand why they kept getting pulled back, why their progress felt stalled, why their thoughts kept drifting to a lifestyle they had long left behind. But once we started digging deeper, once we began looking at what they were still holding on to, the answer became clear. It was in the little things. Old love letters from a relationship rooted in sin and sorrow. A piece of jewelry from someone who pulled them into darkness. Clothes from a season when they were running hard from God, caught up in things they now regret. Every time they looked at those objects, every time they touched them, they unknowingly reopen the door. Just a crack, but enough to keep the past alive. And maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're wondering why those old temptations still whisper, why the heaviness still lingers, why stepping into true freedom feels just out of reach. Let me ask you this. Have you truly cut the ties? Have you removed every remnant of the life you're trying to leave behind? Or are you still keeping a piece of it in the corner of your closet, in a drawer, or on your nightstand? Because if you're still holding onto even a sliver of the past, that sliver might be what's holding you back. That small piece you're still holding on to, if it's still in your possession, then a part of you remains tied to it. And it's not just personal objects that can hold you back. Sometimes it's generational. Some of you have things in your home that have been passed down through your family. Items that have sat on shelves or in drawers for decades. You've probably never questioned them because they belong to a grandmother, a great uncle, or maybe even someone you never met. But here's something few people consider. Not everything that's passed down should be kept. Just as blessings can be handed down from generation to generation, so can bondage. If an item was ever used for something unholy, if it was involved in practices that invited darkness into your bloodline, then keeping it only keeps that chain unbroken. Many people think it's just a family heirloom. But what if that heirloom carries a spirit of oppression? What if it's a physical link to something your family was never meant to inherit? Until you break that connection, until you remove it from your home, its influence will remain. I've seen it firsthand, people taking certain objects outside, throwing them away, burning them, and immediately feeling the atmosphere shift. The tension lifts. The weight breaks. That's not just emotion, it's spiritual reality. Because when you remove the enemy's foothold, he loses his power to linger. Some of you, even now, are feeling that tug in your spirit. You already know what needs to go. Maybe you've known for some time, but pushed it aside. Maybe it's time to finally listen to that inner prompting and take action. Maybe you've been hesitant. Maybe you've been telling yourself, it's not a big deal, or it's probably nothing. But let me ask you, if something in your home is disturbing your peace, keeping you emotionally or spiritually tied to a past you've worked so hard to walk away from, or it simply feels out of place, isn't it time to take that feeling seriously? If it's been sitting quietly in your space, whether it's a symbolic object, a keepsake, or even a piece of decor, and you felt a weight, an unease, or a shift in your atmosphere that you can't quite explain, then it's time to let it go. Because real freedom begins when you remove every last remnant of what was never meant to be there. That's when the breakthrough happens. That's when your home becomes a place of peace, not tension. Everything we allow into our homes, whether it's physical objects, spiritual symbols, entertainment choices, or even deeply sentimental gifts, carries influence. And over time, these things shape the spiritual climate we live in. Darkness doesn't always kick down the front door. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, riding on what we've tolerated, what we've ignored, or what we've dismissed as just harmless. But once your eyes are open, once you recognize what doesn't belong, you're no longer powerless. You have the authority to close those doors, to break the ties, and to reclaim the spiritual atmosphere of your home. You don't have to live under the weight of spiritual oppression. You don't have to accept fear, anxiety, or heaviness as normal. Peace isn't just possible, it's your right. But peace must be chosen. So, take an honest look around your space. Ask yourself, what needs to go? What have I tolerated for too long? And when you take that step, when you remove what doesn't belong, when you purify your home from anything that carries darkness, you'll feel the difference. The atmosphere will shift, the weight will lift, and you'll step into the freedom and light that was always meant for you. Wishing you peace, health, and happiness. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more powerful content that helps you live in truth and freedom.